Hey lady, I am so freaking jazzed that you're here. My name is Emily, and I am a clinical social worker deeply passionate about what's going on in between our ears. I am here to help build up your toolbox against self doubt, social comparison, and nasty self talk to help keep you kind to your mind. You know, we all have something going on in that noggin of ours that isn't always kind. So let's put in the legwork and flex those mindset muscles so that we can move the mountains we were meant to freaking move. Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of the Kind Mind Project. If we have not had the opportunity of connecting individually just yet, I hope that you reach out to me over on Instagram at Emily and the Kind Mind, and you let me know what's going on in your personal growth space. We are creeping up on the holidays right now, and I know that that is a trialing time for a lot of people when it comes to that noggin work that you're doing. So reach out to me. I would love to be able to provide support through the holiday season and otherwise for you. But of course, before we get into our episode today, see, our lighting is terrible. You know that I'm in the process of moving into our first home. And so the setup over here at the old place is slowly dwindling down. Our lighting options are dwindling, so bear with me. And our lighting quality right now for my YouTube watchers. But let's pull a card to set some intention. As I throw things all over the place, to set some intention for this episode and this conversation today. I'm just going to pull the one that jumped out me. Today, I will not downplay my brilliance. I will not downplay my brilliance. Man, that really hits a little bit different today for me because the intention behind today's conversation is really based on rest. I posted on my Instagram story the other day a quote card that was speaking specifically about fatigue and overwhelm and exhaustion. And I'll read it to you here in a second. But it's funny because that card to me seems like the opposite of rest. I'm so conditioned to believe that brilliance means work. Brilliance means service. Brilliance means going a mile a minute. And my gut reaction to that in the frame of this conversation is, you know what? Sometimes I need to downplay what I do in order to let myself rest. That's a whole conversation within itself, right? So let me read this quote card to you. It says, your fatigue is real. Your overwhelm is real. Your exhaustion is real. Don't feel guilty about needing breaks from a world that was never set up to protect your mental health in the first place. Don't feel guilty about needing breaks from a world that's not set up to protect your mental health in the first place. Now, I have some folks that would read this initially and think, it's not the world's job to protect me. But I hear you. And because it's not the world's job to protect us, it's therefore our job to do the protecting, right? And how often are we saying, no, my fatigue, my overwhelm, my exhaustion, that has to be secondary to everything else that's going on? I'll be honest with you, I had a moment today where in my head I said, I am exhausted from taking care of other people and meeting other people's needs and going a mile a minute in order to get everything done. I reached that point today. And I feel like I used to be embarrassed by saying that or ashamed by saying that. And now, at least at this point in my own journey, I'm okay saying that I'm fatigued. I'm okay saying that I'm overwhelmed or that I'm exhausted, because that tells me that now it's time for me to do the protecting part. And even in the process of getting exhausted or fatigued or overwhelmed, it's my job to do the protecting. So initially, if you read that quote card on my Instagram story, or you're hearing it now, if initially your gut reaction was, it's not the world's job to protect me, well, you're right. You're right. It's not the world's job to protect you. It's yours. And that's all the more reason to honor your fatigue, to honor your overwhelm and your exhaustion, to honor your capacity. We talk about this on the podcast all the time. Energy and time are the two limited resources that we have in our life. There is not an infinite amount of time, and you do not have an infinite amount of energy. Therefore, you being a human being, you're going to experience overwhelm. You're going to experience exhaustion and fatigue if you're not honoring that capacity. To be frank with you, over the last few weeks in this process of getting ready to move into our new home and doing renovations and planning things and packing things and also working a full-time job and having this podcast, I have felt that capacity of mine be stretched. And sometimes to points where I need to say, no, it's time for me to pause. It's time for me to stop and recoup and recharge, because otherwise I am going to be running on empty. And I know what happens when I run on empty. I'm a nightmare. I'm a nightmare to be around. And so I want to ask you, when you're running on empty, when you are accepting fatigue and overwhelm and exhaustion as just a part of the process, a required piece of the process, how are you behaving when that's what you're running on? How are you operating? How are you treating yourself? How are you treating other people? Because at some point, you're going to have to be able to say, yeah, not only is my fatigue, my overwhelm, my exhaustion real, but also it's my job to do something about it. It's not the world's job to protect you. It's not the world's job to fuel you and to recharge you. It's your job. It's your responsibility. It's your responsibility to set the appropriate energy related boundaries that don't allow you to get to that running on empty point. It was my responsibility to honor that capacity and to set that boundary. And I allowed myself, this sounds harsh, I allowed myself to be stretched beyond my capacity, to be pushed to a point of not only is the gas light on, but the tank is empty. The tank is empty. And so when I posted that quote card, I had a lot of responses to this, and most of them being, yeah, I feel you. I hear this. I need an episode on this. And I think that my response to that may be one that is not super comfortable to hear. It may be one that you also weren't expecting to come from a little quote card on my Instagram story. And then you saying, yeah, we need an episode on it. The response is likely one that is not super comfortable. Because if you responded to that story and said, yeah, I feel you. I've been there. I've needed to accept that I am fatigued. I am overwhelmed. I am exhausted. My immediate response to that is, what happens now? Yeah, it's one thing to accept and acknowledge I'm exhausted, I'm overwhelmed, I'm pushed beyond my capacity. And I love that you've done that and that we are doing that. But what happens now? What comes next? You know that this is not an acknowledgement based podcast or an acknowledgement based relationship and conversation. So, what happens now? Now you have to do the hard shit. At some point, you allowed yourself to be pushed beyond your capacity, to where you were fatigued, to where you were exhausted. At some point, you weren't honoring the boundaries needed to live within your capacity. So, what the hell are we going to do about it? You know what it feels like to get to that point. Imagine you also know the series of events and commitments and obligations that got you there. You know how much you can handle comfortably. So, did that fatigue, that overwhelm, that exhaustion, what was that built on? What did you say yes to when you probably shouldn't have? What boundaries didn't you honor when you probably should have? And this is not to should all over you and have you look at all the things that, well, yeah, you should have done this and you should have done that. No, this is information for next time. We're going to get overwhelmed. Again, you're going to be fatigued. Again, you're going to experience exhaustion again. And so, how can we start to honor our limits? Honor the limited resource of energy that we have. I'll tell you for one thing, I am a queen of committing to too much, saying yes to too much. If you listen to the previous episode with Tracy O'Malley a few weeks ago, our Enneagram expert, I talked about it on there briefly, but turns out I'm not an Enneagram 3 at all. I'm an Enneagram 2 in disguise who really likes to commit to helping other people. So much so that it gets in my way. So much so that that is my kryptonite. When I over commit to other people and undercommit to myself. And sometimes wear that as a badge of honor. Wear my fatigue, my overwhelm, my exhaustion as a badge of honor rather than what it actually is. It's someone that's committed to too much so she doesn't have to look at her own shit. It's someone that's committed to serving other people so she doesn't have to do her own work. And she can rely on the badge of honor of exhaustion and overwhelm and service to other people. So, the other question that I want to ask you and that I'm wondering is if you're wearing that exhaustion or that overwhelm as a badge of honor. It's wonderful that you acknowledge that it's there and that's what it is. But are you wearing that with pride and disguising it as something else that we can avoid? Or are you going to acknowledge and then mend? Are you going to acknowledge and then take action? Because I don't know about you, but this feeling of overwhelm, as much as I know it's rooted in a place of good, I know it's rooted in a place of wanting to do good and experience a lot of different things. Or maybe it even just comes out of a place of excitement and I want to be a part of it. I want to be a part, I want to be able to say yes to those things. Maybe instead we need to frame it from a place of half-assing a lot to full-assing a few, right? Half-assing a lot versus full-assing a few. Yeah. I know this about myself, but I also know this about you. You're not the kind of person that wants to commit to a lot of things without doing them to your full potential. So if you need to trick yourself at first, if you need to trick yourself in order to honor that capacity at first, maybe we need to say, I would rather do a few things fully and do them really damn well than do a lot of things with an overdrawn gas tank. A gas tank that is running on empty and not able to do it to my full potential. You're a woman that wants to live to her full potential, and we can't do that if we're continuously overdrawing our energy bank account. So if you connected to this slide on my Instagram story, I hope that it didn't stop there. I hope that you didn't read that quote and say, yeah, my fatigue is real. My overwhelm is real. My exhaustion is real. I hope it didn't stop at acknowledgement. I hope it continued far beyond that, to a place where you're asking yourself those questions of, at what point did I overdraw my energy account? At what point was I feeling like the gas tank was warning me rather than telling me it was empty? When did the gas light come on versus when did the car stop? I hope you're starting to ask yourself those questions, because that tells me that you're inching towards action. That tells me that you're ready to do rather than just acknowledge. Bring it beyond acknowledgement today. And if you want to continue this conversation and these questions that we can start asking ourselves to inch our way closer to taking action, I hope that you reach out to me over on Instagram. You send me a message at Emily in the Kind Mind and you let me know where you're at. Are we in acknowledgement? Are we in action? Are we somewhere in the middle? And let's figure out a way for you to full ass a few things instead of half ass a lot of things. Okay. And I'm in the same damn process with you. I love you, my dear. I'll talk to you so very soon. Stay kind.
Dude, thank you so much for including the Kind Mind and this freaking weirdo in your growth journey. If you connected with today's episode, I would love to hear about it. So slide on over into my Instagram DMs at Emily and the Kind Mind and let a girl know, okay? But until then, I will talk to you very soon. I love you so much, and you stay kind to that freaking mind.